emergency for the first time in about...
This is Jim, and
receiving this message. We are Ken Jennings and John Roderick. We speak to you from our present, which we can only assume is your distant past, the turbulent time that was the early 21st century.
Fearing the great cataclysm that will surely befall our civilization, we began this monumental reference of strange and obscure human knowledge. These recordings represent our attempt to compile and preserve wonders and esoterica that would otherwise be lost.
So whether you're listening from an advanced civilization or have just reinvented the technology to decrypt our transmissions, this is our legacy to you.
This is our time capsule. This is the Omnibus.
You have accessed entry 1026.JB4132, certificate number 50176. Radioactive Boy.
Were you the kind of child that when you got inevitably books on magic and chemistry sets, and because we're just old enough that people still gave chemistry sets as presents? I certainly got one.
Yeah, is that not a thing anymore? Can you not buy a chemistry set?
I bet you can, but it doesn't seem like a thing that some grown-up would be like, well, I've got an 8-year-old boy to buy a present for. Like, what do I get him? A chemistry set?
It did seem like a little old-timey even in our era. You know, it was the kind of unbranded toy you would read about in books of like, you know, kids opening a wooden rocking horse on Christmas. But when I was a kid, we wanted toys with capital letters. You wanted Lego, and you wanted Star Wars.
Right.
And you wanted G.I. Joe. But there were chemistry sets in stores, right?
Yeah, and I think the chemistry sets that I got as presents, actually still had the graphic art of 1964 chemistry set. Just like a lot of the model airplanes that they hadn't, like Revell hadn't updated the art.
What does a 50s scientist look like?
Yeah, like crew cut and a short sleeve button down shirt.
Holding up a beaker to the light?
Yeah. But when you got those things, those classic sort of mid-century or earlier invitations to be a certain kind of child, like, oh, you must have curiosity. You seem to always be digging in the waste bin. Also like radio sets.
Yeah.
Right? Like I guess hook up your own shortwave radio and you can hear broadcasts from Russia was a thing that died out in our lifetime. Did you take an interest in any of those, or did you pursue like magic? I had 10 books on magic.
Yeah.
And I always opened them and tried a half a dozen tricks, and they all required that I have practiced them and developed some sleight of hand. And that itself seemed even harder than learning the guitar, and I never followed through.
But at least you learned the guitar, unlike me.
I did eventually, yeah.
I think I was the same way, where I would try to find the easiest experiments or tricks or whatever in the book and try them. And you'd realize, of course, that the easy ones were also not interesting or impressive in any way.
Right.
And most of that stuff was just gathering dust in the back of my closet. And after week one, we got a set once of like circuit components where if you put them in the tray in different orders, you could make different kinds of, you can make the light go on in different patterns.
Right.
They were probably not that interesting. They might have been European.
Well, now, wait a minute. But you did get into computer programming, which is kind of our generation's first replacement of
but
that. But
never recreationally. That's the thing.
What?
Until the day I had to write code for a grade in class, I had never written a line of code. Unless you count typing in basic code verbatim
from PC
that
magazine.
I had seen in Byte magazine. Exactly. Yeah.
And so, but did you do the thing where you programmed like a cursor and a sound generator to make 8-bit like beep boop 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 beep boop boop boop?
Never until I was getting graded for it.
Wow.
That's why I should not have been in computers, because every other kid my age was sitting at home thinking boy, I wonder if I can if I can make this sound, or if I can make this graphic thing, or whatever their code was.
Yeah. Even I
No interest.
did those things until I realized how boring they were. Not just how boring they were, but how boring they made me. But the key moment for me was when I got WordStar, a word processor, and I realized, yes, I can spend all day trying to get some cursor to make a shape, or I can sit here and write like really crazy things, and it exists in a computer. It's not just a typewriter.
It's true. It scratches kind of the same itch.
Yeah,
I'm in Tron basically because I'm using a word processor.
Yeah, and I
or
could,
a desktop publisher.
A man walked into a barn, but he could, and I just wrote and wrote and wrote. I wonder where all that stuff is.
Do you think it's on a floppy disk somewhere,
yeah.
Like a 5 1/4?
I still have my IBM PC back here.
I think I had that same process, but with different kinds of art software, like graphic software. That I could, rather than write code that would make the turtle make a funny shape, like there were pre-existing applications for this. I could draw a circle in many colors, and I was happier doing that than the adventure of creating your own space.
But in another example of the difference in our ages, right? When I started in personal computers, there were no color monitors. There was no color of any kind. It was green.
Well, we had a green monitor briefly, but even the Apple II had color graphics.
Not at first.
Maybe you just had a black and white monitor.
I mean, no, we bought what was at the time a very forward piece of technology, which was the orange monitor.
We had both, yeah.
Yeah.
It was easier on your eyes, right? The
easier
amber
on
ones.
your eyes, yeah.
I think the TRS-80 was black and white, but the Commodore had color. I thought every Apple II had color.
We never had a colored monitor.
We hooked up a TV, which meant you would get the color, but it would be CRT, so it'd be blurrier than a monitor.
Yeah, right. I mean, I had video games hooked up to the TV, but we never hooked up the PC to a TV.
Apple II did have color graphics.
From the very beginning, from 1970, whatever, when did the Apple II come out?
Let me see, 77 maybe?
It had color the whole time? Not at our school. At our school, it was just...
You guys just had cheap-ass monitors, maybe?
I guess. I mean, it was a school. They paid for, whatever. I'm not even sad. Forget it. But none of my friends had color monitors either, not until the mid-'80s. I think this was just...
My memory is we literally hooked up a cheap old RCA TV.
Right.
And sat it on top of the sat it on top of the case.
Well, there are going to be people really talk about writing us letters. There are going to be people writing us all kinds of letters, but...
In WordStar, probably.
Probably arguing both sides of this equation.
People are writing WordStar macros right now to send us corrections.
But it is funny to think that there was a time, and a time I would have located in the generation older than us, where kids still did on a Saturday entertain themselves with
science.
Yeah, going out into the garage and mixing saltpeter and ash and trying to make things explode, right? Every kid really just wants to make things explode, at least every kid I ever knew.
I assume that's why chemistry sets went away. Any of the ones that would actually do anything interesting were also not particularly safe.
Yeah, right. Super dangerous. Because, what are you going to make that isn't just baking soda and vinegar that doesn't also either make you pass out or burn you?
We did have a neighbor kid, and this was like within the last 10 years. We had a neighbor kid who in junior high or middle school and high school was obsessed with the periodic table and wanted to have a collection of one of every element. And it did seem very chemistry set coded to me. This was a throwback to a different time. But this kid talked so much about the elements he was missing and which ones are regulated. And his grandma says that when her smoke detector dies, she's going to send him the little americium, the little americium in the smoke detector. And I thought, wow, like this kid's going to work at Bell Labs in 1971, when he graduates.
Well, you might think so. And in fact, the main character of our story also was fixated on having every element in the periodic table.
Oh, it's the same thing.
And it was a person, and I think it was one of the things that made his chemistry teacher and it excited his chemistry teacher and bored his friends. It's hard to get every element. of the periodic table, because as you say, some of them are regulated.
Well, especially now, some of them disappear after a femtosecond. So you're not really you're not going to get that one. I mean, you will very briefly, but you can't show your friends, even if they were interested.
A femtosecond.
I love the idea of a chemistry teacher thinking like, I have finally touched one life. After 25 years of teaching public school, I finally have one kid weird enough that he likes this stuff.
Well, I think actually the chemistry teacher here was like, oh, desperate and dateless, but good on you. I think science in general, the stereotype is that it's a place where introverts or people that don't want to necessarily, they're shy or they don't vibe.
Yeah, working with people is not their priority.
They end up finding a place in the world and putting their energy into a thing that gives them validation and
well, if you're being reductivist, it's a system you can understand. It's rules that are maybe easier to follow than working in HR or in marketing, where it's a lot hazier.
But the hero journey of a lot of young people that get into science in this way is that they are geniuses, and they do take that early fascination and all that knowledge then to being admitted to college when they're 14 and going to work for the NSA or in the Peter Thiel version, they end up being entrepreneurs and patent holders and all this excitement.
Silicon Valley startups.
But of course, they're
beholden to no government because
that's right.
Because they played with computers as a kid. Why should they have to follow the law or believe in antiquated concepts like democracy?
That's right. I said something the other day on Blue Sky about how we should have compulsory national service in this country, just to remind everybody that we live in a democracy, but you also have to chip in. You can't just sit and suck off the teat and then complain. And I got a lot of these rationalists saying, you're making a classic mistake of thinking that work is real, and that in the future there's even going to be work because we're all going to live in the elevated land of big thoughts. Ooh. And the machines are going to do all of our, mixing and blending. And I was like, oh boy, I'm sorry that I stumbled into this part of Blue Sky.
I didn't know that was a part of Blue Sky.
Oh, yeah.
It's like the most AI skeptical space I've ever been in.
Well, that's the thing.
Including real life.
These are all AI skeptics who are also feeling like AI is inevitable. And
oh, I see. They're doomers about it.
They're doomers, but they're trying to make it work. They're trying to make it work without taking over the world and ruining us. They still do believe there's a possibility that it could do all the milling of the flour and somehow all the mowing of the lawns.
I just see so many absolutists on there.
Yeah.
That are like, nope.
That's why it's a
don't
terrible
even
place.
touch.
The entire internet is awful, and I only now just want to have 30 friends, and hopefully some of them are interesting to talk to.
You can't go to lunch with your internet friends, so it's good. It's good to have actual life. It's
true. Nice real life friends are pretty rad. But the funny thing about child geniuses is that probably statistically more of them either flame out early or have other problems that prevent them from being successful entrepreneurs.
We did an omnibus about failed prodigies.
Yeah.
Right? There's already been an entry.
Yep, that's right.
Can we call this one?
Yeah, let's just at what are we? Are we even 10 minutes yet? 12 minutes. Ken, that.
We don't need to talk about Radioactive Boy. We can just open some mail. I'm already eating big Rainier cherries right now because they're about to go bad. It's like the last week of Rainier cherries.
When we first started doing this show for How Stuff Works back in 2017 or whatever it was.
Wow.
The premise, I think, was shows should be about 25 minutes long. And we were like, oh, okay, that seems like a lot of work. And then just gradually, or maybe not even gradually, I don't remember when we did our first show that was an hour, but
think how much simpler our lives would be if we were like, okay, 20 minutes, Radioactive Boy, go.
And go. And
it would seem a little bit like you're Houdini trying to get out of a tank of water.
Right, but we could do 10 shows a day like you do at Jeopardy. We'd just be machines. Like, boom, 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 boom.
We could still be releasing shows we recorded in 2018.
Yeah, but the problem with doing an hour and a half long shows where where I am constantly sidebarring us and
with your grievances against the internet.
and just like, oh boy, the other day I tried to get my furnace started, and you're like,
That's not me snoring. It's every listener. I'm alive and engaged.
you know what? A lot of the podcast listeners put us on because we help them go to sleep.
That's right. So
And
this is the part for that.
Yeah. But
Unless maybe by mentioning it, we just kind of jolted them awake again. They were like, "All right, I'm trying to fall asleep. Go back to the furnace."
It does mean that when we are done recording, we're both exhausted.
I never want to talk. I come home like I'm going out to dinner with my wife tonight. I'm not going to want to talk.
Yeah, you're like,
I talked all day.
I don't know. John was just talking about whatever. I can't even remember.
I don't mind getting talked at. It's like actually talking, I think, is more tiring for me.
You know, my daughter often will say, "What did you guys talk about today?" And I'm like, boy, there was I don't remember, something about England.
You just always say something about England.
But what's funny is that chemistry sets did not go entirely away, and books trying to teach young people how fascinating and fun chemistry is do survive. It's one area.
It's a huge area of the bookstore. The kids area of the bookstore is now half books with like crazy facts about dinosaurs or Iceland or whatever. But they are less participatory. Right?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I think the ones that survive, it's the last refuge of someone who doesn't want their books to be too woke, right? Like fun in chemistry doesn't have a land acknowledgement at the front of it.
You're saying science is conservative coded?
Well, I don't know anymore. Jeez.
For Peter Thiel, I guess.
Golly gee willikers, I'm not even sure. But I do feel like a lot of those, like, hey, fun with chemistry, they still have the same text that they had in 1962, and it's all it's all about beating the Russians to the moon.
I mean, defunding science is certainly conservative coded. They've really cornered the market on out of work scientists.
Well, now that conservative is just synonymous with like bonkers and believes in ghosts. I
don't mean all your principled conservative friends who are
the conservatism of 1974, which was also crazy, but in a different way. That just believed that Laos should be bombed into submission.
Right.
Yeah.
They're not like us.
But our story starts with a young man in a suburb outside of Detroit who was, the son of General Motors people.
What's the era here?
We're talking about our time.
I'm trying to picture his T-shirts. Okay, so they could have Ernie and Bert, but they also could have Van Halen.
Yeah, the protagonist of our story was born in 1976, so a little younger than you. But
bicentennial baby.
Yeah, still what we would call a Gen Xer.
Right.
And born, his father was a GM engineer. His stepfather was a GM engineer. Stepmother was a GM engineer. His grandfather was a GM engineer. And his mother, after she got divorced, married like a GM adjacent sort of truck driver, bulldoze operator.
Real black sheep. She left the GM engineer family and married into the GM worker family.
And they were living in a suburb of Detroit that was, as we know from Grosse Pointe Blank and all the other movies of that time, Detroit had fallen on hard times and everyone moved to 25 miles outside of Detroit, which is part of the reason that Detroit fell on hard times. But they were the engineers of their time. And by that, I mean short-sleeved science shirts with
pocket
protectors and crew cuts. And so our protagonist is David Hahn, and his parents were divorced kind of at a young age, or when he was at a young age, and they each sort of went their separate ways across town from one another. His father and stepmother sort of stricter and more businesslike. His mother had emotional issues and was kind of a little unreliable, but she married like a good salt of the earth kind of character. And David grew up between the two houses, and he was he was a kind of a curious kid and one that was always sort of a little aimless, not interested in school, but fascinated with his own sort of peculiar collecting of all the patches of the countries he'd been to, which at the time was only one. An easy collection
He had
to
one
build.
patch.
Yeah, just one.
So
USA flag.
he's like a little bit lost in school because he's gifted, not because he's lost.
Well, yeah, I mean, gifted in a way that, yeah, probably 1970s gifted, where it's unclear what the schools are supposed to do with him. Very hard to direct. His father and stepmother had the idea that he needed direction, and his mother maybe was a little bit more loosey-goosey. But his grandfather, a GM engineer, at one point at age 10, I guess, in order to give him something to think about, gave him the book, The Golden Book of Chemistry Experiments.
I'm looking up this cover right now to see if I had this book.
Yeah, it's a book that I recognized when I looked at the cover as for sure something that was in the elementary school library and maybe something I got as a birthday present.
But it certainly looks like something that was also in the library, like maybe possibly 10 or 20 years before his time.
Yeah. And it was a book that was unapologetically written in the style of like, science is fun. And also let's beat the Russians to the moon. But there's no downside to science. There's no moral conundrums about science. Science is the path to the future. It's how we're going to build a better society. It's how we're going to eliminate famine. And it's not just going to take us to the moon, but we're going to find new sources of power. We're going to develop technologies that bring upon a utopia.
And it should be a big part of your life as a child, even,
Yeah.
to be goofing around with manganese.
Yeah, because this is an era where, right, science was no longer, if you think about America in the post-war era, our advances came so rapidly and really did improve the quality of life for so many people. We've talked about how global famine seemed to be looming and then just went away.
Averted.
As a result of technology, increases in fertilizer, and it happened multiple times. But this was an era of tremendous hope that nuclear power was going to put an end to energy dependence and was going to make a world where we didn't have to mine coal and oil. Weren't talking about climate change yet, but they were still living in cities that were choked with smoke.
Right, you could feel just from the vibes that fossil fuels weren't working out.
Yeah, and the idea of cheap and efficient nuclear power really did seem like a path forward. But also all of the metallurgy, I mean, they were discovering new elements all the time, and the periodic table seemed to potentially stretch into infinity. I'm sure there were lots of people that understood that eventually they would arrive at elements that only survived a terasecond. But there was still a lot to be discovered. But this idea of chemistry being morally neutral, the post-war era was also a time where moral conundra were like really resonating in everybody's head.
I assume in the nuclear age, it seems more urgent, right?
I mean, if you think about, we used the nuclear power to destroy cities, but also the most technologically advanced nation of the mid 20th century committed tens of millions of people dying as a result of their applying their technology as a form of overwhelming, there's a Holocaust, but also tens of millions died in that war. And it was a war where their premise was that they were advancing civilization with science, faulty science. And we were in a struggle for global dominance with a political and economic system that seemed antithetical to innovation, although that wasn't what the Marxists thought.
That wasn't how they built themselves.
Yeah, and
they thought they were the future.
They were using science, to build their own kind of advances, really, at the time before they ran out of money. And so this hopefulness got into the head of David Hahn, this sense that science was approachable and that there was a need for young people to get into this world and build a better one. Mm-hmm. And it was a time when nuclear power was still a very fashionable and had not yet produced the kind of one disaster after another. I'm sorry, when this book was written, nuclear power had not yet produced the one disaster after another that David Hahn would have known, having grown up in the 80s when it was...
Yeah, 3 Mile Island to 79, right?
He would have been just a young guy. And I remember, if you remember, the 80s were peak no nukes.
Right.
Nobody cares anymore. Now we're getting all the Peter Thiels that are like, we need to build, everybody needs a handheld nuclear power system.
Yeah, like the support for nuclear power is now kind of bipartisan because it turned out the stakes were higher.
Yeah, right. And climate change
sticking with fossil fuels
is a thing. It's not just acid rain coming, killing the forests of Ontario.
Yeah, it's an existential crisis, possibly so.
Yeah. And we've got all of Utah to bury our nuclear waste, as we'll see. Ken, in these days, there's a lot of science suspicion, but also a lot of confusion about food and brain health. I don't know if you've been following the news, but there are a lot of challenges to figure out, like, what's right for you in terms of your nutrition, your looking after your own health, both physically and mentally.
Yeah, I mean, we all know the old adage that you are what you eat,
Mm-hmm.
but like, what does that mean in light of like kind of new scientific understanding of how nutrition is, can actually be good for the brain, can affect cognition?
Do you ever watch Shark Tank?
I love Shark Tank. It actually it tapes on our lot, I believe, at Sony.
Oh, you should use your gold card to go in and see an episode.
I feel like I've seen a couple of those guys just wandering around in the wild.
Well, this is a product I'm about to describe to you that actually...
I thought you were going to pitch me a new product like we were on Shark Tank.
Listen, Ken, I want you to understand that with your money, I can bring this product to market. No, this is already...
it's already been on Shark Tank.
Been on Shark Tank.
Shark Tank approved.
And the company is called Mosh, and it was founded by Maria Shriver and her son, Patrick Schwarzenegger.
Ooh, what a pedigree.
Yeah, I'll say, right? They were formerly California's first family.
Sure.
And Mosh has a simple mission, which is to create a conversation about brain health through food, education, and research.
I understand this is personal then because Maria's father suffered from Alzheimer's. And so it's important to her and Patrick to find ways to help other families dealing with that.
That's right.
And one of the ways they've done that is to try to improve the protein bar. Right?
Yeah.
Build a better protein bar and the world will beat up a protein path to your protein door.
But they're not just out there in their kitchen cooking up protein bars in their...
Wouldn't that be funny?
In their Kirkland
Wouldn't that be funny if Maria Shriver was just mixing up a batch of protein bars?
No, they've joined forces with the world's top scientists and functional nutritionists to go beyond the average protein bar with ingredients that support brain health like ashwagandha and lion's mane and collagen and omega-3s.
I like that you don't know what any of those are, but you said them so confidently.
Well, I am nutrition adjacent. Sometimes my food even includes nutrition.
The great thing about these is even if you're not a health nut, this stuff tastes great. The flavors they're all plant-based and the flavors are like chocolate chip cookie, hazelnut chocolate chip. These seem designed to be things I would eat anyway.
Well, and the thing is, the only proof you need is that my kid got into my box of Mosh bars and ate them like as though they were candy bars.
Well, maybe that is not the healthiest choice. Do not do not eat a whole box of protein bars at one sitting.
She also is sensible enough not to eat a whole box of candy bars at a whole sitting. But, you know, like in the afternoon when she wants a little pick-me-up,
Yep.
she goes to a Mosh bar. It has cognizin, a premium nootropic that supplies the brain with a patented form of sitcholine.
You sound so smart.
Well, thank you.
I don't know what any of that means, but I like that Mosh donates a portion of their proceeds to fund like gender-based brain health research through the women's Alzheimer's movement. I didn't know that 2/3 of all Alzheimer's patients are women. Did you know that?
I didn't. In fact, all of the Alzheimer's patients in my personal experience are men.
Well, maybe that says a little bit about you, John.
Oh, maybe so.
Maybe you need to be a better ally. I don't know. But like brain health is important to both of us. And all I know is the Mosh bars they sent me were great.
So head to moshlife.com/omnibus and you'll save 20% off plus free shipping on the bestsellers trial pack. Or you can choose the new plant-based trial pack.
Wow, 20% off plus free shipping on either, what was it, the bestsellers trial pack or the plant-based trial pack. That's MOSHLIFE, moshlife.com/omnibus.
Thank you, Mosh, for sponsoring this episode.
Thank you, Maria Shriver.
One of the exciting technologies in the 60s was the idea of a breeder reactor. And a breeder reactor is one where the promise was through a series of like the decay of radioactive elements, there was a way you could direct a kind of chain of nuclear events that actually would sort of recapitulate itself. And the way that it worked was that if you got plutonium-239, it would interact with uranium-238. They would trade neutrons, or a neutron would jump off of plutonium-239, would connect with uranium-238, causing uranium-239, which then would decay to neptunium-239, which would, if you added a neutron to it, create more plutonium-239. And you could generate...
It's a cycle somehow.
Yeah, you could generate power and actually replenish the plutonium that you're using at essentially like no cost once you got the system percolating. You know, you need to add neutrons.
Small amounts of. And does this actually, just to cut to the chase, does this actually work? Was that working technology then or now?
Well, there were several sort of test reactors and what this promised was, we wouldn't have to keep finding uranium out in the middle of nowhere, and and uranium isn't plentiful,
right?
And we wouldn't have to constantly be. Yeah, that's right. It's absolutely sustainable. And so in 1961 in Idaho, there at the Idaho Test Ranch, where they made so many marvelous bombs.
Idaho has a test ranch?
Well, yeah, the Idaho. It's over by whatchamacallit Falls. What's the Idaho Research Laboratory? Is that what it is? It's part of the nuclear triangle.
I did not know there was any triangle that included Idaho.
Yeah.
Not the Bermuda Triangle, not the Golden Triangle.
It's the Idaho National Laboratory. And it was part of it was connected to Hanford. It was connected to the one in Tennessee. And they built a test reactor for this a test breeder reactor at the Idaho test site in 1961. And it eventually suffered a core meltdown, which is kind of not what you want.
No.
They outside of Detroit, they built the Enrico Fermi plant, which was also a breeder reactor and also suffered a partial core meltdown.
So far, this tech you're not selling me, John.
No, unfortunately, because it seemed pretty hot.
5 minutes ago, I was so into this tech. And then you just described 2 meltdowns, and now I'm like, ooh, I had my checkbook out, but now I don't know.
Well, the United States government also was pretty excited and had its checkbook out, and they built sort of an enormous breeder reactor research site in Tennessee called the Clinch River Breeder Site, and the idea there was that it was going to be a plant that solved energy dependence for the entire United States. And they poured a bunch of money into it and they couldn't get it to work. And eventually they had to face the facts that they were going to have to put so much money into it that it was sort of a all or nothing prospect. And they
chose all?
No, they didn't. They chose nothing. But that lasted until 1983. So
it lasted into the era where breeder would have started to become familiar gay slang?
Oh,
I guess.
I don't think so. I only heard breeder in the 90s.
I didn't hear breeder until the early 90s also. But I feel like I would not have known the cool, Castro district slang.
Oh, that's true. I mean, I feel like breeder as a gay slang required the idea of gay marriage, because a breeder marriage would be sort of the opposite of a queer marriage.
No, I don't think so. I think it could still be a relationship as opposed to a queer relationship. Like the breeder couple next door it doesn't... I
guess so.
I don't know.
I don't know. I think a breeder reactor, that's not what we would call it today. We'd call it a sustainable reactor or a sustainable reaction.
It does seem better. You don't want the word breed in your tech.
No, right?
Something about the word breed.
And the thing about a conventional fission reactor is that you have the ability to slow down the reaction by pulling the rods out, putting them back in part. Part of the science and part of the sort of, it's really what you want is to be able to control the reaction. And I'm not sure exactly what the technology was in a breeder reactor. I guess it would have to be like how many neutrons you supply to the reaction. I'm not a physicist.
I can't tell from this.
Yeah, so I'm going to be describing this in
the idea is
lay terms.
You can get the neutrons somewhere that's less onerous than mining for uranium in the West Africa or the Southwest Desert.
Yeah, you can do the neutron dance, and
that's right. You got to do the neutron dance.
But unfortunately, none of it really worked. But David Hahn was inspired by the idea that science would.
He'd been reading about this in Time or something.
Yeah, science would ultimately prevail. And he was someone who really dove into his science kit to the point that he was doing pretty sophisticated little science experiments, a lot of them having to do with blowing stuff up like a good American.
That's what a kid would want.
But, at the age of 12 years old, when I certainly was blowing things up, but I was blowing things up by spraying WD-40 into a candle. And
there's many easy ways to blow things up.
Yeah.
So many of them date back to the Middle Ages.
Yeah, right. I mean, we did in high school try to make gunpowder and successfully made bad gunpowder.
Is that better?
No. Oh. But in Alaska, you could actually buy gunpowder at the Fred Meyer. You could get it at the grocery store because there were more black powder hunting enthusiasts than there were teenagers that were building bombs. Although it seems like, why?
Yeah, it seems like as soon as that ratio changes.
And I think it was also you had to be a certain age to buy black powder, but when you're a teenager, you can kind of...
in Alaska, nobody's really...
I'm 13, but maybe I'm 16.
By the way, just as a sidebar, first attested use of breeder as a term for heterosexuals, 86.
Yeah, right. So
there we go. After the reactor.
Yeah, the breeder reactors shut down in 83, so... But
he wanted to blow things up in a different non-Alaskan way.
Well, David Hahn had by a pretty young age, instead of trying to make black powder as I was trying to do, he actually made nitroglycerin in a test tube.
Oh, wow.
And he was doing all of this in his bedroom. His stepmother, he was living with his father, and his stepmother and father were encouraging him to use his chemistry set because it seemed productive and it seemed like a thing that was what smart kids did that didn't have a ton of friends. And he multiple times created a big enough explosion in his room that he burned the wallpaper. And at one point, one of his explosions put a bunch of fragments in his eyes that had to be, kind of pulled out.
And none of this led to let's reconsider your hobby, or
It did. They moved him to the basement where
but his eyes are still in the basement.
Yeah, I mean and he kept kind of blowing things up to the point, and this was during the period when he was impressing his high school chemistry teacher by saying what his goal was to collect every element on the periodic table. A lot of what I'm describing today is I need to credit to the writer Ken Silverstein, who actually, this was a story that labored in obscurity until he discovered it and wrote this kind of key
Interesting.
Atlantic magazine article that ended up being turned into a book.
Long after the fact?
Long enough after the fact. Yeah, this was
Is this like a 90s era story, or
it was the whole thing. The whole thing culminates in the mid 90s, but the book doesn't come out until the mid 2000s. Okay. So there was a long period where it was all just a local news story until it became like a hilariously national news story.
And I somehow missed it.
Yeah.
When you told me about this, this was news to me.
Well,
I'm learning about this on a podcast, like most people.
It's still small. It's still a smaller story than you might expect. It does seem tailor-made for a Hollywood film.
Yeah, I didn't. There's been no adaptation,
but there's a little bit of tragedy in it, so maybe that's why. But eventually, his stepmom and dad say, "Look, you can't keep doing this in the basement. This is, there have been too many house-rocking explosions downstairs."
I would be done as a parent.
And so he moves his little laboratory over to his mom's house into a potting shed that's in the backyard. And by now he's ordered all of his chemistry set equipment. He's got Bunsen burners and tubes and so forth. And he becomes excited by and convinced that a breeder reactor is possible on a small scale, and it is still potentially the future of energy independence. And it seems like
it's very ambitious.
Yeah.
There's probably not a lot of people who are sure that it works on a big scale, and this guy's like, "Well, I'll put one in a potting shed."
Well, his dad encouraged him to join the Boy Scouts as another way of channeling his energy. He's really not doing well at school, and there isn't a gifted program that suits him. And his disinterest in most subjects certainly stands out for somebody who's as interested in, toward the end of his high school career, he almost didn't graduate, not because he didn't have the classes, but because he took the math and literature tests and failed them. It was only the science test that he had bad spelling. He wasn't
he's a savant, maybe.
Yeah.
I think he's obsessive about the things that interest him.
But his dad encourages him to join the Boy Scouts, and then in this GM engineering way, sets the goal for him that he be an Eagle Scout. And I think by all accounts, he's a pretty good scout because there are enough merit badges. They're the required merit badges, but there are other ones that
there's sciencey,
a lot of sciencey ones,
nerd-coded ones.
And he picked for his Eagle Scout project the nuclear power.
There is a
Eagle Scout.
There's a nuclear science merit badge.
There's a nuclear science merit badge, and I think his scout leader said that he was the only person in the greater Detroit scouting community that had ever picked it as his big project.
It appears to still be a merit badge.
I guess
I'm looking at the guidelines. You do not have to build a You do not have to build a reactor, but you do have to
No.
build either an electroscope or a cloud chamber or something that demonstrates radioactive decay.
Yeah, it's the atomic energy merit badge. And he did build a reactor model out of a juice can and some kitchen matches and so forth. But he really wanted to explore the actual science behind it. And he, in what seems to be a pretty clever set of ruses.
Yeah, how does he get fissionable material?
Well, he sent out dozens and dozens of letters to all of the people that were part of the world of nuclear regulation. You know, in the United States, possessing any more than minute amounts of many of these elements is strictly regulated. You can only have the material if you are if you have a reasonable explanation for why you're using it.
Yeah.
There are a lot of industries that do use fissionable material in different processes.
Industrial.
But it's not stuff that you can get on the open market. But David wrote letters to pretty much everybody that trades in the stuff and all the regulators besides, presenting himself as a high school science teacher who was curious about this stuff because he wanted to do experiments to show his class.
So identity theft
A little.
becomes part of the story.
Yeah, I mean, he's still 14. Still young enough that this feels like, I mean, there were pranks that I pulled at age 14 where I was misrepresenting who I was. I just wasn't trying to get like thorium. I was trying to...
He's trying to get into a bar.
Yeah, exactly. I was trying to get into a bar. But he is very successful in communicating with a lot of the people. This is enough of a plausible story that most of his correspondents accept it without further investigation. There's no internet, of course, and there's no, or I mean, we're going to get letters from people that are like, technically, there was
ARPANET.
But there was no way for people to, and no interest really, probably from most people, to challenge that story because, again, who wants a Mericeum?
Yeah.
Not anybody who has a nefarious...
This is probably the first time anybody had ever, any other requests they got probably were science teachers looking for demo materials.
And he had ordered a Geiger counter kit and built one. I mean, we have here on the table a Geiger counter that was sent to us by a futureling.
Oh, yeah.
And it does seem like a thing that you could kit build. I remember not very long ago at my party, George Meyer came, and we both know George Meyer as a collector of not just cool and crazy art, but also space age ephemera.
Love Soviet space stuff.
And he saw this from across the room, hidden behind a bunch of books, and he was like, "Is that a Geiger counter?" Like, okay. And that's
he's a radiation detector.
He detects detectors. So David was already sort of collecting all of what he could find, and he wrote to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission and started a correspondence with the director of isotope production, a man named Donald Erb, not HERB, but ERB.
And was he like, I'm a kid? Did he admit who he was?
No, he said, I'm a teacher, and I want to build some of this stuff for science. And can you help me? And Donald Erb was like, oh yeah, teacher of the year. Are you kidding me? What you're really going to need is some beryllium. Like he walked him through not just here's how to get radium.
This is what government does at its best, John.
Yeah, that's right.
Explains isotopes to 14-year-olds.
And these days we're defunding I bet Donald Erb doesn't even have a job.
There's so many weird kids that will never learn about isotopes thanks to this dangerous new era.
And so David starts to compile a list of the fissionable material that he needs and starts to discover like ways that he can acquire it as a teenager. A lot of it you could never buy unless you were buying it at an industrial level. Some of it you can't even really possess.
That didn't bother Mr. Erb, I guess.
Well,
He's
Mr.
helping
Erb,
out.
you know, and I think David went a little bit further than Donald Erb expected, but he realized that americium 241 is available in minute amounts in smoke detectors.
Right. That's my neighbor. By the way, my neighbor kid is also a Boy Scout. So it's possible that I'm living next door to the reincarnation of a Radioactive Boy.
Yeah, well, and then there are some kids inspired by David's story. But the thing is, he's so industrious. He wrote a letter to a company that manufactured smoke detectors and said, again, I'm doing science for kids. I'm a grown person.
I am not a kid, as you know.
Will you send me, can I buy broken smoke detectors?
Signed, an adult.
And they were like, well, sure. And they sent him 100 smoke detectors.
Do you think he bought them, or do you think they were like, hey, package up those?
He claims that they charge him $1 a piece. And so he's a kid that's also got a newspaper route, or he's from his parents are, or his father for sure is well-to-do. They live in a suburb of a town in Michigan that's actually called Commerce Township. And their subdivision is called Gulf Manor. So he's not like Eminem. He's not living on 8 Mile.
He's living on Gulf Manor. Imagine how different that movie would be if a kid lived on Gulf Manor.
On Gulf Manor.
And got really into hip hop.
If you think about it, it's 1988 or 1990, he can come up with $100 to buy 100 used smoke detectors.
But he's very resourceful. I think a lot of kids in this position would be like, okay, I need to canvass all my friends' houses and steal their smoke detectors.
And he did some of that. And it was, I think, through that he realized he needed a bulk.
He needed industrial quantities.
Yeah, he wasn't getting the americium he needed. And yeah, there's a lot of neurodivergence that kind of plays into this, although that isn't part of the story as reported in the late 90s. But his mother was diagnosed with schizophrenia and was in and out of institutions. Like, she was very supportive. All of the adults were supportive of him and trying to help him in his projects. I mean, he had all these Bunsen burners.
Is this a moral lesson about not being supportive of your kids? Is that what the ending of the story is going to be?
I think it's
for the love of God, don't support your kids.
It's another one of the many great Generation X stories where the message seems to be, maybe you should go look at what they're building.
We were left alone to drink from the hose and make nuclear reactors of spent americium.
Yeah, in my own, is it americium? Is that how it's pronounced?
That's how my neighbor kid said it.
Well, let's say americium then. It sounds better. I mean, americium sounds like a John Roderickism.
It sounds like something you'd have in your house.
Americium sounds.
I've opened up my americium. Let's have appetizers out in the americium. Oh, Webster prefers americium but allows americium.
Americium.
Americium or americium?
All right.
I had only heard americium.
But so he breaks apart enough smoke detectors to get at least a small bunch of americium 241. He realizes that you can get radium 226, as you know, and I know, from old clocks.
Yeah, the glow in the dark clock faces.
Yeah, it was very popular when it was discovered radium glowed, to put it in watches and clocks.
I've always thought of doing a show about the radium girls.
Yeah.
Because they were painting on the numbers with fine brushes, and unfortunately they would make sure they got a nice fine tip by licking the brush with pursing their lips, and it turns out you do not want to do that.
Yeah, they all died of cancer.
Yeah, their faces melted. It's not a feel-good story.
No. And so you couldn't find radium just lying around. But he took his Geiger counter that he'd built, and he actually...
Good thing he built a Geiger counter.
Yeah.
I didn't know where that plot thread was going to go.
He actually fastened it to the dashboard. This is now he's 16.
Okay.
He had an old Pontiac, and he fastened the Geiger counter to the dashboard of the Pontiac so that as he was driving around town, if the Geiger counter started to register any kind of protons flying off, he'd pull over and be like, "Where's it coming from?" He'd get out with his Geiger counter and
what kinds of things would they be? They just tossed watches and other consumer items that had.
Well, in this case, he was driving past like a vintage, like a junk store, and Geiger counter went bonkers, and he pulled in and went in, maybe holding the Geiger counter. Probably not. He probably recognized that it was coming from an old clock, and he bought this old radium face clock and opened it up. And whoever had made the clock had left a bottle of radium paint in the back.
Just accidentally.
Either,
or was it to touch up the...
Yeah, either accidentally or as part of this is the kit that it comes with the clock so you can keep it glowing.
Yeah, keep it glowing.
Yeah, keep it glowing. So now he had this big bottle of radium paint. And then he found out that thorium-232 was actually present in the little mesh mantles that you have in Coleman lanterns. If you think about the way a Coleman lantern works, or any kind of glass lantern, those mantles are made of fabric, but they light up when you burn gas in them, but they don't really they last forever. They're curious things, and I remember as a kid staring at them going, well, and putting spots in my eyes, but looking at them and saying, how is it possible that this little net doesn't burn up? And
it's the magic of thorium?
The reason is that thorium-232 coats the outside of them, and it has a really high burn point or melt point. And so somehow it, in the same way that you can boil water in a paper bag that's sitting in water. Is that right? Yeah, you can.
Sounds like you did do the science experiments in all those books.
A little. This is a thing that you can find mantles for Coleman lanterns everywhere you go, or anywhere you go, right? Any kind of hunting supply.
Scraping thorium off of old camping lanterns?
Well, what he did was in his lab, he had a blowtorch that could get up to temperatures enough that it could ash the mantle and leave only thorium in its place.
This guy's refining thorium in a potting shed.
And then the main way we mine uranium is it appears in kind of a coal-like substrate called pitchblende, which is also known as uranite. But that's not appealing.
Pitchblende sounds better.
Pitchblende.
It doesn't have urine in it.
And pitchblende it does occur naturally, and you can use pitchblende for other things, and it is possible to acquire pitchblende in not enormous amounts, but it would all of this stuff would require refinement, right? The radium in a jar, radium paint, isn't concentrated.
It's not weapons grade.
Yeah, this is the problem for Iran. It's not that they can't get the stuff, it's that they can't refine it to enough.
Iran's been driving around junk shops in the Middle East for years, trying to find enough clocks.
Right. So he continues to write letters and talk to customer service reps at all of these places, and just sort of elicits from them in their cheery, like, "Oh, how can I help?" Is trying to figure out how to extract the fissionable material from its binder, and he has some pretty bad ideas. I mean, he crushes it, he burns it, he gets it into powder, he adds water, and he's often trying to filter it through a coffee filter, hoping that either the fissionable material will go through the coffee filter and all the junk will stay on the top,
yeah,
or he can get all the junk to flow through it, and it's just the concentrated stuff at the top. And all of this refinement requires multiple steps. You do it and you do it and you do it. It's like gold panning. And sometimes the coffee filter works, but often it's not a source of, you can't actually refine stuff that way. Eventually he gets enough americium for 241 that he can actually sort of weld it all together into a little block of it. So he has an amount of this material that he then builds an enclosure for and creates what is effectively a neutron gun.
Neutron gun.
So the idea being that he's building
he can produce and fire neutrons at an industrial target, a reactor target.
Exactly. He's going to find another fissionable element, fire neutrons at it in order to get it to have a reaction. And he goes through all of these steps. Like he has to actually, you can't buy nitric acid by this point because it's used in explosives.
Right.
It's also regulated.
We're almost into the McVeigh era.
Right. But he uses his chemistry set to build his own nitric acid in order to, use it as a part of his.
These laws just discourage lazy terrorists.
Yeah, exactly.
It would be like not selling somebody Sara Lee brownies, but you can still get, flour, sugar, and baking chocolate.
He melted these mantles down and was able to collect enough thorium-232, but he needed lithium to purify it. And so he bought, now spending a lot of money, he bought $1,000 worth of lithium batteries, cut them all open, collected the lithium and used it to purify his thorium. And now he's purifying thorium well beyond what the Nuclear Regulatory Commission would say was the
safe
point.
Or legal?
Yeah, the point past which you should be licensed and regulated.
Do we know where he's getting the money? This is just some after-school job. He's bagging groceries and spending all the proceeds on thorium and lithium. I mean, his parents aren't giving him money, right?
Well, he's working on his Eagle Scout.
Oh, maybe he can say this is for my merit badge, and his dad's like, sure, we'll get you some science equipment.
Yeah, and I think the people that are monitoring the merit badge long ago feel like he's excelling well beyond what was required.
He's probably already earned the badge, unless he just hasn't signed up to explain the thing.
I think his merit badge project did win awards. I think he graduated from claiming to be a teacher in some instances to talking about this as merit badge work.
Yeah, please support my Eagle project.
Which a lot of people were like, hey, that's great. You sound like a neat kid.
I'm not un-American. Of course I'll support your Eagle project.
And he's talking to people that are using x-rays in hospitals. I mean, there are lots of industrial applications for this material, and he's consulting people across the industry, kind of figuring out best practices. He is able eventually breaking it down. He got some barium sulfate from a hospital and used it to purify his radium enough that the coffee filter technique worked. He's doing all this with like a lead garment that he built himself.
He does know that radioactivity exists. This is promising.
Oh, for sure.
But he's made his own safety gear.
Yeah, and he starts to, when he comes out of his shed, because his Geiger counter's going bonkers.
Oh, so his self-made Geiger counter is on.
Oh, for sure. And he's monitoring how much radioactivity is going around. He knows it's bad for him enough that he starts throwing away his clothes after he's in there with a session, he comes out, takes all his clothes off and burns it, or throws it away.
He seems less worried about, say, his bones and teeth.
Right. But he does, he is starting to find that his Geiger counter is registering radiation on the other side, first on the other side of a concrete wall. Second, like he starts to get pretty strong readings, houses 5 down from him. Like he just walks down the sidewalk and his Geiger counter still. So he knows that he's doing.
But at this point, he knows he would also be in trouble. He's kind of disincentivized from doing anything about his problem.
Yeah, except I think he's probably had these long conversations with so many people. He knows he's concealing what he's doing, but I think in the spirit of science, he's hoping that he will be a hero. He'll build the first really. I think he understands that in order to build a breeder reactor, he's going to need 30 pounds of enriched uranium, which he'll never acquire. But
is there some kind of model
he can demonstrate that he can build this. He's continuing to talk to Herb, who at some point says, because he's realizing that like he can't control the reactions past a certain point, and Herb is like, well, what you need is tritium, because tritium is going to, it's going to absorb neutrons and slow the process.
It's basically heavy water, right?
Yeah.
Heavy water is deuterium, or I can't remember which isotope it is.
But he finds out that tritium is used now that radium is no longer fashionable. It does create those little glowing dots in gun sights. And so he goes to a gun sight manufacturer, orders a ton of gun sights, takes the tritium off, and then sends them back like, these are faulty.
It's tritium, by the way.
Oh, tritium. Thank you. And then they fix them and send them back to him with more tritium.
Hey, somebody scraped off all the tritium on this stuff.
And he creates a neutron gun that really is effective.
It's more than my kids ever did.
I know,
I'll tell
right?
you that.
It's kind of like put together with duct tape and foil.
It's because Pokemon Go didn't exist that he had all this time.
That's right.
If he had something else to obsess about, he would be a different kind of autist.
He didn't have TikTok to sit and watch dance videos.
That's right.
Ken, one of the things, if I were a millionaire, like some people I know, one of the first things I would do is hire a personal shopper.
Really? Why?
Well, I just feel like when I go to the grocery store, I wander around. I'm like, oh, donuts. I shop like a member of The Simpsons. I just walk around like, oh, paper towels. Those are interesting. Like maybe I should get some of those. And then I come home and there's, I've got already 40 paper towels because I forget.
Because I'm married, my grocery store routine is more like I'm on my phone at all times being like, I can't remember. Do we get the 20 pack or the 30 pack?
And Mindy's like, ugh.
Do you get the store brand of Pico de Gallo, or do you like this one that has a map of Vashon Island on it?
The thing that drives people crazy is that I will sit and do the thing where it's like, well, this is $7.99 for 14. This is $5.99 for 10.
A lot of long division.
Yeah, I'm just
when
like,
you're at the store.
And some of that information is even on the price tags, and I just won't read that part.
You don't like the per unit part in the lower right?
I have to sit and calculate it myself, which means that when I go to the grocery store, it takes me hours. But the problem is, I don't know enough about cooking and combinations of food. Nutrition to shop for food that is going to produce good meals for me and my family.
So you're screwing over future you because you come home with a bunch of stuff and you're like, why did I get a head of celery?
Yeah. And everybody's like, oh, let's have dinner. And I'm like, well, let's see. I have roast beef, but I also have like marshmallow cream. I'm not sure what to do with those.
I can solve this problem without giving you $1 million, which I am not going to do. But what if I were to tell you, this is $1 million secret I'm going to let you in on, John.
Okay.
You know what's like having your own personal shopper? Hungry Root.
Oh, I know Hungry Root.
It's a meal service that takes care of your weekly grocery shopping. It recommends the groceries tailored to your taste, to your preferences, to your goals. You just tell them what your goals and preferences are, and they just fill your cart with recommendations. And as they find out what you like and don't like, their amazing algorithm gets better and better at shopping for you.
Is this good for the whole family, or is this just for me to stop eating roast beef and marshmallow cream sandwiches?
Nope, terrible for the family. What if that was the ad read? Nope, sorry, not for families.
Nope.
No, you're not going to believe this, John, but this Hungry Root has great options for the whole family. Like stuff kids will eat, like snacks and smoothies and ready-to-eat meals, salad kits, supplements. There's pretty much nothing a family or its members would eat.
Well, stuff that
Hungry
kids
Root cannot
want
help
to
out
eat, but what is it full of high fructose corn syrup and artificial sweeteners?
Yes, that's what's great. No, none of that stuff. None of their food has preservatives, corn syrup, artificial sweeteners. All the meat is top quality. The seafood is free of hormones and antibiotics. You can trust Hungry Root.
Well, my kid is about to go back to school, and we're going to go out of our summer lack of routines back to a routine-based culture.
Are you guys a lunch packing household?
We really are. We pack lunches and we have dinner, like archaically, we have dinner together.
Nice.
We sit at the table and we have dinner together. And we say grace.
Is that right?
We say it because we went to dinner at your house when our daughter was little, and you guys said grace.
But don't you guys say Mandalorian grace?
Yeah, we do. She was so impressed by the fact that you said grace. She was just like, what are they doing? This is insane. And I was like, well, it's called grace. And then, so she made up a grace, and it's basically a Mandalorian grace.
It's good to have a belief system, even if it's the Mandalorian.
We thank the Mandalorian for all of the things that happened to us, and then we say, this is the way, and then we all go around and say, this is the way.
Well, for packing lunches, Hungry Roots has a kid snack section that you can just stuff to throw in lunch. Family dinner is no problem. Hungry Root has really changed the way we eat in the Jennings house. And I think you guys are going to love it too. Should we let instead of just chatting about this between you and me, should we let our listeners in on the deal they gave us?
Wait a minute. You're saying let them in on the exclusive offer?
It's an exclusive offer. And yet somehow we're going to let them in on the exclusivity. For a limited time, you can get 40% off your first box. Wow. Plus, they'll throw in a free item in every box you receive for life. For life. All you have to do is go to hungryroot.com/omnibus and then use code omnibus. Easy to remember.
That's hungryroot.com/omnibus with the code omnibus to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life.
It just trips off the tongue. hungryroot.com/omnibus, code omnibus. In the waning days of summer, John, shall we offer a special summer offer to our listeners?
It is still summer, so technically a summer offer would be on the table.
Well, summer goes till mid-September. There's like a month to go, right?
And around here, let's be honest, summer now goes well into October.
September and October are pretty nice. But you know what's not nice in the summer is when your wireless bill suddenly goes up. And you look at it and you realize you've been, they took away your introductory plan and you've been paying way too much for your phone for months.
I got a wireless bill not that long ago that was just, it was such an embarrassment. And I mean an embarrassment for them.
Not to you.
No, I wasn't.
You were embarrassed for them.
I was just mad.
You were embarrassed for your provider.
They should be embarrassed at how mad I am.
Well, you know what you can do, John, is just give up on those guys you're embarrassed for. Why not have a wireless provider that you're proud to be affiliated with?
Boy, that would be nice. Do you remember when a wireless provider, it would almost felt like a club, like who's your wireless provider?
Yeah.
It felt like you were part of a thing.
Well, time to do that again. I recently made the switch to Mint Mobile.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they sent me a little virtual SIM and I switched my phone over and I was so happy.
So you didn't have to get a new SIM? You didn't have to get a new phone? You didn't have to change your address book over?
No, you can bring your phone number, you bring your contacts over. The transition could not have been easier, but I noticed the difference right away because the coverage and the speed were still great. But I paid way less. In fact, right now, their cool summer deal, 3 months of unlimited Mint Mobile premium wireless service, $15 a month.
$15 a month? That's like an exponentially better rate.
Anybody out there paying $15 a month for wireless? Because if you're not, it's time for Mint Mobile.
I think I told you already, but all of my daughter's friends are on Mint Mobile.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, because it's much cheaper. It still has
parents are smart.
Parents are smart, and it comes with the same high-speed data on the nation's largest 5G network. And all of these kids just, they act like I'm such a dolt for using some legacy platform. I never thought that teens were going to tease me about my wireless provider.
Plus, it's the one that like Deadpool was like an early contributor on, and he's still like their spokesperson and consultant. Don't you want a Ryan Reynolds approved phone plan?
Absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised if the K-pop Demon Hunters are getting in on it. But
Those are your two pop culture references.
But listen, I can't
Deadpool
say that they are.
And K-pop Demon Hunters. So, John and I are fans of Mint Mobile, or at least in the premise of this ad read, I am, and he's going to try it out. Is that what we've been doing?
That's next for me.
All right. So I guarantee that John will like it too. You should not be breaking the bank on wireless this summer. Try their new offer. 3 months of unlimited wireless for just $15 a month at mintmobile.com/omnibus. That's mintmobile.com/omnibus.
Upfront payment of $45 required, equivalent to $15 a month.
That's true. I did the math.
Yeah. That's the same math I do at the grocery store. Limited time, new customer offer for the first 3 months only. Speeds may slow above 35 gigabytes on unlimited plan.
That's a lot.
That is a lot. Taxes and fees are extra. See Mint Mobile for details. He had a buddy that said, well, another thing you want to get is cobalt, because that's another thing that absorbs neutrons as they're flying around so they don't slam into other like fissionable isotopes and cause problems. So he buys a bunch of cobalt drill bits from the hardware store, but he couldn't get the cobalt to work. And eventually he's creating a radioactive Superfund site, and he knows it. He knows now that he's irradiating the whole neighborhood, and that he's built a thing that he can't control. And so he stops. He takes it all apart. He breaks it down. He puts some stuff in his mom's basement. He loads a bunch of it into the trunk of his Pontiac, and he says, I got to slow my roll here.
To hide it.
And in 1994, so, at this point he's 18, right? Yeah, 18. He's driving around in his Pontiac, and he gets reported, a neighbor calls, because he's behaving suspiciously. They called the cops and said he's out stealing tires. And the cops pull him over. It's unclear what he is doing, but they notice this strange equipment in his car, the Geiger counter, among others, and they search his car without a warrant, presumably.
Geiger counter is probable cause, apparently.
In 1994, it's unclear, but as soon as they get his trunk open,
can they pretend it smells like weed and/or thorium?
Probably that's what they did, and/or thorium. They get his trunk open, and there they see a lot of weird stuff, including a toolbox that's covered in duct tape that has a padlock on it, and all this other stuff. And David is saying, hey, this stuff is radioactive, so you better not mess with it. At which point they freak out because they think this kid has built some kind of dirty bomb. And dirty bombs are already pretty well.
What year is this?
94.
So is this after Oklahoma City? Is that what people are thinking of when they...
No, it's right before, but the concept of a dirty bomb had already become a concern, I think. This is...
The truck bomb in the World Trade Center would have happened. But, you're right. Oklahoma City bombing 95. Okay.
This would have been, though, after the dissolution of the Soviet Union and the idea that nuclear stuff was proliferating around the world.
Lots of media coverage. This is all going to get smuggled out. George is just going to start selling off ICBMs or something.
Well, and the recognition that not everybody's going to be able to refine this enough to make bombs, but they could just put a bunch of it in a suitcase.
Just irradiate a city.
Yeah, and then everybody's going to get... I mean, apparently David, his teeth didn't fall out, even though he's got a neutron gun in his shed.
He probably fashioned like a lead retainer.
So the cops towed the car to the police station, which was probably, if it was a dirty bomb, not the best idea. But they called the state cops and the Department of Health, and those crews said, boy, this is kind of over our pay grade if it is what he says it is, which triggered the feds, who arrived with the emergency radiological response team. And so this is August of 94. It wasn't until January of 95 that the EPA, because the federal agencies are like, well, we are the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, but we don't really have like a special squad.
Right.
I think that's going to fall to this, that, it kind of juggles around.
It does seem like the kind of thing that bureaucracy is ill-equipped to handle.
Right.
Like not a terrorist, not a foreign actor.
Like a kid in Detroit.
What if a kid had a neutron gun?
Yeah. So the EPA, shows up now, 5 months later, and they go to the house, and they're like, well, this is a super duper fund site, and we're going to need to tear this down and put it all in barrels and send it to
like the whole house
Utah.
Is nuclear waste?
No, not the house, but all of the stuff around the shed.
I see.
What nobody knew at the time, and was only reported much later, was that his mom was afraid that she would lose her house, and so went into the shed, took all of the stuff, and just put it into the garbage, and it went to the dump. So by the time the EPA got there, they were dealing with a shed that had like the stuff left lying around, which they determined was like a glowing hot mess, and spent $60,000 putting it all in barrels and shipping it away. But nobody ever
the actual.
nobody
it's
ever
still there?
went to the dump in Detroit and figured out that she had disposed of all of the stuff.
This is boss level throwing away your kids' comic books or baseball cards.
Yeah.
Throwing away your kids' breeder reactor while they're at camp.
So at this point, David was in deep trouble, but he wasn't bad.
He's not legally an adult.
They all kind of all the agencies were like, oh boy, well, the less said about this, the better. And
are they worried about the panic on the street?
I think none
Golf
of the
Manor?
neighbors really they all saw the ET level
Right, the tent.
guys in the hazmat suits, but the local authorities were like, it's fine, don't worry about it. And the word just didn't make the national press. It wasn't, maybe like a tiny paragraph on page 14, but there was no reporting that in any way indicated the scale of this project. And so his dad at this point was like, look, you can't stick around here just because he was super depressed. David went into a depression. They had taken his life's work away. He was 18 by this point. Everything was, he'd lost it all.
Yeah.
And he'd staked everything on this, his checkerboard breeder reactor.
And nearly got in legal trouble, it seems like.
Legal trouble, and and he was aware. He kind of scoffed at the radioactive damage to his body. He said, maybe I took 5 years off my life, but nothing that bad.
Well, I'm sure this process must involve medical testing of, say, his parents.
Well,
right?
so they tried. The NRC wanted to submit him to a ton of medical testing, but he refused. And I guess they couldn't compel him to do it. And his dad made him join the Navy.
Huh.
But because he'd barely graduated from high school and had I guess he did like a semester at a community college and flunked out. And so he joined the Navy, but was just a swabby. And they actually, his posting was on the USS Enterprise, which is a nuclear carrier, but he had no connection to the nuke side. He just was
he was the second most radioactive thing on the ship.
And he did well in the Navy and kind of worked his way up to a petty officer, and then laterally transferred into the Marine Corps, where he started over and ended up working his way up to a lance corporal. He was pretty good in the armed services. Sadly, his mother succumbed to her mental illness, and only a couple of years later, when he was in the Navy, committed suicide, presumably unrelated to the nuclear
Seems
reactor
like a lot
in
of her
yard.
problems are pre-existing.
But he eventually did, when he got out of the Navy, he was showing signs of schizophrenia himself. The book by Ken Silverstein came out in 2004. Ken discovered some reportage by another reporter who then kind of gave Ken the all of his work
Some
and
local
said,
guy, he got his notes.
You can go, pursue this further. This article in the Atlantic and then subsequent book were both alerted the world to these things that had happened. I think the article came out in 98,
but nobody'd heard of it outside Detroit.
But nobody had heard of it even in his own neighborhood, except as like a small little newspaper article. So now he was pretty well known. I think the story was maybe optioned as a film, but David was arrested in 2007. I guess he was now on drugs. He was like a cokehead and increasingly showing signs of schizophrenia, and was arrested for stealing smoke detectors from the building where he worked.
Uh-oh.
And he claimed not to be building any kind of...
This is just a coincidental smoke detector
I
heist.
just got really into smoke detectors. But he's becoming paranoid. And he starts to be talking about QAnon level conspiracy theories that people are tapping into his brain waves and people are electrocuting his testicles or building machines to electrocute his testicles, which, as we know, turned out to be true.
What if we learn about some other kid who's been, fraudulently stealing trace elements of chemicals for years in hopes of building a device to electrocute to David's testicles?
Well, we will learn about a couple more kids just here at the tail end of the episode. Sadly, in 2016, at the age of 39, David Hahn dies of
Take its own life, or
fentanyl poisoning. He becomes a drug addict and in and out of trouble with the law, and a combination of booze and fentanyl and Benadryl.
I assumed
takes his life.
I assumed the radiation problems were going to catch up with him, but there was never any medical.
As far as we know, his drug addiction was just a commonplace Michigan-style drug addiction. Right. Navy vet who has mental problems, dies of.
I guess the mental
drugs.
problems could have been related to the semi-criminal obsessions of his youth.
But it was also, his mother certainly, he seems to have inherited some of the schizophrenia, and maybe. I've known a couple of people who didn't exhibit symptoms of schizophrenia that were clinical until they were in their 20s. I think that's commonplace. But when you think back to them as younger people, they always were pretty intense.
They were the odd ones.
Yeah, they were super smart and also obsessive about certain things. So maybe that is an indicator. But what's fascinating is that although there has not been a Hollywood movie, his legend is sort of out there percolating among kids with science fair projects. And in right about the time that this was all falling apart, 1994, a boy was born in Texarkana by the name of Taylor Wilson. And Taylor is another one of these smart chemistry set types, except he comes from a well-to-do family. His dad owns the Coca-Cola bottling plant in Texarkana. So as you can imagine,
printing money.
Talk about dollar princesses.
I bet he lives on Golf Manor.
Yeah, right. They have so much money that his mom's a yoga instructor. But he's a smarty pants kid, and the world, I guess, is more ready for smarty pants chemistry kids in the sense that he's placed in gifted programs. He's already taking college classes at the age of 10 and so forth. And he's famous for creating he's the youngest person to ever achieve a fusion reaction. and was then immediately just like internationally celebrated. He's a cute kid.
Like he did this in high school, fusion reactor?
Yeah. Well, I think even maybe younger, but yeah, I mean,
That seems like, cute kid who does that, goes to a late night show in the White House, right?
Yeah, that's right. And he actually did go to the White House. And at a certain point, he won the Thiel Fellowship, which is a fellowship for super smarties, sponsored by Peter Thiel. One of the conditions of it is if you are awarded, I think, $100,000 to $200,000. This is so perfect. One of the conditions is that you drop out of college. It's like
You have to drop out of college.
You have to, bro.
Don't let the woke DEI apparatus change you. I want to get my hands on you first.
And so he did, and he used the money and the time to do more science. And he now, so he's born in 94, so he's 31, and he's a prominent scientist and is
without a degree still. He took the money.
Well, no, I wonder. I mean, you drop out of college, but you can go back to college after the fellowship runs out. But he's a kind of Goodwill Hunting character who was very young and in college and doing science that was pretty impressive. He's given a TED talk that you can see online, and he's a real booster of the idea that our future is in fission, and that this is the solution to climate change and the energy independence that will bring back the idea that science is a morally neutral, beneficial, like a flying cars futurescape.
I think Golden Book for Chemistry is going to be back into print in no time.
Eventually, it all comes back around.
And that concludes Radioactive Boy, entry 1026.JB4132, certificate number 50176, in the Omnibus. The Omnibus is currently probably underperforming on social media at our various handles, at Ken Jennings, at John Roderick, at Omnibus Project. But boy, there was a time when we believed that science and Twitter were our future.
Yeah, we really were terminally online, weren't we?
And our brains are fine.
Yeah. Oh,
I mean, as long as I do New York Times games on my phone for 6 hours a day, no ill effects from all those years spent looking at a screen.
Have you decided that you don't need to be queen bee every day, or are you down
spelling bee?
Spelling bee. Are you down to my level where you're content with genius?
I'm never content with genius, but I'm often stuck with genius.
Yeah, you'll accept it.
As in all elements of my life.
Content with genius.
Let's content with the Ken Jennings story. Let me see. In the last week, have I even been queen bee once? That's if you play New York Times spelling bee. That's like
that's where you get
perfect
all
score
of the words possible.
Let's see.
From the 8 letters or whatever they are.
Stats.
Queen bee a single time.
I was queen bee 3 times last week.
Well done.
Not yet this week.
So I have only ever been so bored that I achieved queen bee status a single time.
It does require boredom. Like I had a 50-day streak at one point, but I think it was a lot of like international hiking trips where I would just be like, at my hotel at night, just staring at my phone, trying to get up to.
As you've said, you have to. You always have to, at a certain point, just start throwing letters at it because some of the words are not words.
Sometimes you discover new words.
Yeah.
And then I look them up.
And you're like, hey, look at that.
I discovered a new kind of Japanese sauce.
Word of the day, blorg.
You can email us at theomnibusproject@gmail.com, correcting our pronunciation of chemical elements.
Explaining to me how all of my explanations of breeder reactors were.
You can shoot John with a neutron gun.
Wrong.
If you subscribe to our highest Patreon level. You can email or send us physical items to P.O. Box 55744, Shoreline, Washington. And I've got a stack here.
Yeah, you do. We've got some mail to get through.
A. Frazier said...
Not the Frazier. Just A. Frazier.
Merely A. Frazier. Does A. Frazier imply the existence of A. Niles? Huh. I was under the impression people would buy plus-size furry romance comics at conventions. They did not. This is a good cautionary tale for our listeners. Please do not throw all your savings into plus-size furry romance comics that you sell in person.
This was a business opportunity. They thought this was
It sure sounds like he went on Shark Tank, or he, she, or they.
Uh-huh.
Sharks, listen up. Now you know about plus-size romance. You know about furry romance.
Right.
You know about romance comics. But what if? The older comics were, they did buy buttons and fridge magnets. So
there is a market.
He, she, they pivoted to buttons and fridge magnets where they would cut up old 50-cent comics and make buttons.
That's a cool idea.
The older ones were always popular, especially the Comics Code Authority seal. So A. Fraser has sent us a bunch of these buttons cut out from different comics. Like here's Dagwood Bumstead.
Hey now.
Here's a word balloon that says, and give me a good explanation. These are kind of kitschy and fun in like a pop art way.
I like these.
I can't even tell who this. Oh, this is the Old Witch or something from EC Comics. This is a Tootsie Pop wrapper, but the rare kind where with an Indian that's
actually on every third one.
The chief is hitting the arrow right out of the bow, or hitting the star right off of his bow. These are really great. Thank you so much for sending these along. Some are fridge magnets and some are buttons. I'd like to have one of these for my fridge. I don't know about you. Take a look.
That's the thing. This is the rare thing where we get a piece of cool stuff that you plausibly might actually care about.
And then we fight over it.
But then you're really the last person I know that would put a button on their Levi's jacket.
I would put a magnet on my fridge.
This invasion stuff is all well and good, Admiral, but tell me what I really want to hear, says that button.
Well, that could be like a sexy one. This invasion stuff's all well and good, Admiral, but you know what I yearn for from your lips.
I really like that Dagwood Bumstead. I don't know.
Maybe you should start wearing that a lot. That's your trademark.
But I feel like you also are kind of a Dagwood. There are a lot of witches here.
Let's see. Steve. Let's see. Oh, our listener, Dave. I'm not sure I can follow this. Sent us some chick tracts.
Good.
Which we always love to see.
I follow it so far.
A book of poetry by his friend's dad about riding the rails. Poetry and prose about riding the rails.
Cool.
That he thought you would enjoy. You're the more hobo-coded host.
Probably so.
It came pre-signed to Mr. and Mrs. Pete Brown from Steve Johnson. He suggests that you change your name to Pete Brown. Dave has changed his name to Steve Johnson. In fact, he even signs the letter that way.
Oh.
So this can be very personal. He didn't want me to feel left out. So here's an 80s era copy of London A to Z, the iconic London equivalent of the Thomas Guide.
I think I have that very edition.
Yeah, I wonder how often they reprinted this. Because obviously, the streets don't change that often.
But do they rename streets in London like they tend to do in America?
I have never once seen it. It's still always Finsbury Mews and Finsbury whatever, just like it was when that stopped being the Heath in 1870.
What's interesting is here in the United States, there are places where there were maybe one too many Stonewall Jackson boulevards. But in the UK, the number of murderous colonialists has got to, their names are on everything.
Maybe they never named any streets after them. Like the naming a street after someone is something I think, like here, a lot of the problem is like every 6 times a year, the city decides to rename a street or a single block of a street after some local organizer or sports hero or city councilor.
Edgar Martinez Boulevard, that's 2 blocks long.
That's right. It's a boulevard, but it's a short boulevard. Yeah. It's a square. It's a perfect
It's a dirty
square.
boulevard.
It's a dirty boulevard. So here's your hobo book.
Thank you.
I'm continuing to ransack the mail here. Anton sent enjoys the show, and this could have been an omnibus topic. Do you know the Wikiwachi mermaids? This kind of 40s, 50s undersea.
Yeah, it's on my list.
Have you ever?
It's in a motel in Montana, right?
Well, this one's in Florida.
Oh, Florida. There is one in Montana that has a swimming pool.
It's the same thing where you go, you see the mermaids performing under the water. But the show can only be 5 45 seconds before the mermaids need to take a breath.
Right, although
It seems like it would limit some choreography options.
I mean, if you think about deep sea divers, some of them go for literal hours.
Is this what pearl divers have been reduced to, dressing as bathing beauties at a Florida resort?
You know, one of the things is if you have 10 mermaids, 2 of them can be breathing at any time, and everybody else is busy, captivated.
You just
by
have to rotate mermaids.
That's right. Everybody gets their breathe.
Well, Anton sent us an Images of America book with cool old vintage photos of the act. This is great. And if you want kind of maternal-looking women in one-piece swimsuits, John, as I know you do,
yes, ma'am,
that is the book for you.
Did any of them major in marketing in college?
Is that your dream?
Well, it just seems to be more my reality.
Here's a postcard from... Oh, no? What is going on here? Howdy again from Kyiv. Oh, it's our correspondent from Kyiv, Rai, with a kind of a cool, I don't know, quasi-religious art.
That seems
my
pretty modern.
Yeah, Our Lady of the Buckminster Fuller or something. And let's keep it going here. This is from...
Keep it going, Ken.
Oh, Sparky.
Sparky.
Sparky is our national traveler. Some time ago, you were discussing overly literal banners like, welcome back in big letters, you know, like when they get the cake wrong and it says, and then there's a picture of a sports car. I suggested an overly literal Punisher skull. It took me some time, but I finally had some stickers made. Let me know if you need more. And so he had stickers that say Punisher skull and it looks badass. These are pretty great. He sent us 5 black and white Punisher skull and it looks badass stickers. Just to be clear, it just has the words.
Yeah,
Punisher skull and it looks badass.
I wonder that if you put that on the back of your car, you would cause car accidents. People trying to figure out what the heck you were talking about.
I don't know where Sparky got the stationery, but it says, we've been thinking about you at the top, but then it has a series of Hanna-Barbera characters look like they've been thinking about you to threaten you.
Is that hand-drawn?
I don't think so. Huckleberry Hound holding a noose. Yogi Bear and Boo Boo are making a fist and patting a bat with their hand, respectively.
So this was not authorized by Hanna-Barbera.
Clearly no. But it's funny because it says, we've been thinking of you, but then not in a nice way.
It is funny. It'd be funnier if it was an entire notepad of them so we could send threatening letters to people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What if a sticker just says Hanna-Barbera characters, but they seem mean? Here's the letter.
Yes.
This is from Danny to John and Ken, but mostly John. Oh, sorry, Daniel, my mistake. Roughly 30 years ago, I was walking to my apartment on Capitol Hill for my job at the Seattle Funplex.
Okay.
What and where was the Seattle Funplex?
Is he talking about
Not the Fun Forest by the Space Needle?
Yeah, that's what I would think he meant. Funplex, unless there was some sort of video game parlor that neither of us remember.
It could be some Capitol Hill arcade. I don't remember.
I don't remember that.
Maybe he worked at the Fun Forest. So it has to be somewhere where he'd passed Denny and Broadway, crossing between Capitol. So I guess the Fun Forest is still a possibility.
Yeah.
Some frat boy tourists were hassling me, calling me the F slur, and pushing me between each other. I was a terrified 5'5", scrawny, smooth-faced gay boy. Suddenly, a hulk of a guy appeared and told them to piss off. As you may have guessed, that fine specimen of manhood was you, John. You saved my bacon. Do you know this story?
No.
Of getting these jerks off of Daniel?
No.
You were incredibly sweet about making sure I was okay. I never got your name, so was unable to track you down to thank you. Some years later, I was at a show. This is great. And there you were on stage. At the time, I was a practicing addict. I wanted to thank you after the set, but wound up having to leave before you were done because I was falling down drunk.
Oh, boy.
I eventually got sober. You probably missed out on a lot of fan interactions because they
were all too wasted.
They were too wasted to talk to you, but not anymore.
Well, and also all the people that I was out rescuing in the day, they all were like, I'm too wasted.
You were like the first Seattle superhero before that one guy, that wall crawler guy.
Except my cape was a Filson jacket that had moth holes in it.
And your catchphrase was probably like, "Hey man, that's not cool."
Hey man, knock it off.
Knock it off. Knock it off is like a very dad-coded superhero.
Yeah. Hey, knock it off.
I would like. I think I'd like a Superman or a Captain America movie where he just says "knock it off."
Knock it off. My vibe was always when I saw people getting picked on, I was always like, "Want to fight? Want to fight somebody?"
To the victim?
No. I would
terrible.
Always,
That's a terrible idea.
Get in front and be like, "Hey, if you want to fight somebody, fight me." And then, of course, they're bullies, so they didn't. One time, I was on a bus, and these kids got on, and it was late at night. They were going up the aisle, just like literally flicking the ears,
People's ears
of all these old people that were like taking the bus home from their like cleaning lady jobs. And I'd been sitting in the back of the bus because I was drunk and smoking cigarettes or whatever. But these kids were like laughing and flicking and like really violent. And so I stood up and came down the aisle of the bus and was just kind of like nuts. And I was like, oh, do me next. Like flick my ears next. And they were, what are you going to do? Right. They're like, well, that doesn't seem as fun. And
especially if you're getting off on it.
Yeah. And so then I'm like right on top of them, like, do me. And they were like, oh no. And one of them said, are you some kind of cop? And I was like, yeah, like a cop that, like flick my ears, do it now.
The ear cop.
And the bus driver pulled over and they like got off the bus and then the doors closed and I was like, like, because I had been acting.
You got out of character.
Yeah, I had been acting like
your greatest role.
Oh no. And then I was like, la da 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 da.
I wasn't an ear weirdo at all.
And then they ran after the bus, like cursing and but the bus driver was on the side of justice. And so he
didn't let them off.
No, he left them behind.
He saw what So this could be a letter from one of like dozens of young gays you saved from street crimes.
It was the era of I'm going to use the terminology of the time, fag bashing.
Yep.
And so there were all kinds of thugs and Nazis would come to Seattle specifically looking for like young gays who were on Capitol Hill. And I was all over the hill. So it was like, it was fun. I got beat up one time by 3 guys with bats.
So those were his first 2 encounters with you. He says, I eventually got sober. Fast forward to a couple of years ago. As a fan of Ken, stumbled upon the Omnibus podcast, and lo and behold, John Roderick.
Wow!
It kind of seems like I'm the real hero here.
Yeah.
If he had not been a fan of mine,
you're the one that brings all the people together.
This letter would never have happened. It's taken me a few years to get the nerve to write this, but thank you. I hope he's okay with me reading this on the show because this is very sweet. When you helped me, I was on my way to becoming a bitter, sad misanthrope. Your kindness became a lifelong reminder of the existence of decency.
What?
My budding misanthropy was stopped short, and thanks to the both of you for countless hours of entertainment edification. As a result, he wants to send us these carvings, but because you're the only one who like physically, saved him in a crime fighter way, you get first pick, apparently. So
carvings.
Oh, these are really good. Holy cow, these are, I was like, are these some 3D printed thing? No, these are like actual wood carvings and they're beautiful.
You have them in your lap and I can't see them.
Well, I'm enjoying them first, even though I didn't do any crime fighting.
No, but you did bring us together. Oh, wow, they're dragons.
This one is a dragon, and I thought this one was too, but it seems to maybe just be kind of decorative serpentine.
Well, no, turn it sideways.
cues.
Turn it sideways. It's an aminal.
You think that's a head?
Oh, isn't it?
I'm not sure. Here, take a look. They're both beautiful.
Well, they are beautiful. And they seem to be made of different woods. Oh no,
They're stained.
That isn't an aminal. That's
it's some kind of a typographic curlicue, right? Like a flourish.
Celtic. These do seem Celtic knotted rather than like
Asian
they're
dragon.
Not Asian.
Yeah.
Wow. They're beautiful and like wow, really nicely done.
Daniel's writing from the Midwest, where apparently he lives now, but he had several John encounters before leaving Seattle.
Well, thank you, Daniel. What a nice letter. I have a tendency to think of myself in that time as just being wasted myself all the time, and not. I don't have a ton of memories of those days that I look back on and think
that was good work.
Yeah, that I was doing anything positive, but I guess that didn't, at the time, it didn't feel even that I was doing anything unusual.
Well, you're not implying that You're not implying that that's a plus side, right, of addiction, that you do more crime fighting.
No.
Because you don't want Daniel to get the wrong message. Yeah, now that I think about it, I was a very productive drunk.
No, but we've talked before about being young, and I liked slam dancing and all these things where, and just crashing, right? Because it was, it felt good. It felt like a good, getting hit kind of felt like being alive. And so
you still think punk rock is bull.
Oh yeah. Punk is baloney, but slam dancing is one of the great gifts. And I don't do that as much anymore. I'd prefer not to get hit, because now I hurt all over.
Yeah, I really don't see myself slam dancing much. Let's see. I was trying to think if there was a note on this package from J.A. Futureling, an anonymous, I assume standing for just A.
Oh, just a Futureling.
Not from J.A. Frazier, just a Frazier, who's a different a Seattle psychiatrist. Yeah. This one comes to us from an anonymous Virginia listener.
All Virginia listeners are.
Who thinks we should have some of these? These are like they're all comic related, but they're also all omnibus related. There are 2 books about Lil Abner and the Shmoo, whom we've mentioned.
I love the Shmoo.
This is the Lil Abner book is from the era where Al Cap created Sadie Hawkins Day. We talked about that on the show,
yeah,
and then I don't know when you brought up the Shmoo, but we've talked about the Shmoo really more than any other podcast.
I bet, unless Dave Anthony has talked about the Shmoo at length, but
Mark Maron loves the Shmoo, it turns out. What if we are the most Shmoo-pilled piece of media of the 21st century?
Word.
Yeah, thank you, J.A. Futureling. And then the other 2 are, this is a book of Clyban cartoons.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember when we talked about him.
Well, I have a book, a collection of his cartoons somewhere here. That's not funny. That's sick.
He's great. I've always liked this guy. I think a lot of these were in Playboy. Is that where Clyban published? Yeah. I think. And then this is just related to the entry that was recently released about the Comics Code Authority. Youth, Popular Culture, and Moral Panics from Penny Gaffs to Gangsta Rap. 1830 to 1996.
Well, that seems like it condenses probably 20% of the shows we do.
Exactly. Like if you instead of listening to Omnibus, you should just buy this book about video game panics and probably satanic daycares. Thank you so much, anonymous Virginian.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I should mention that we are at 1 hour and 40 minutes, which is maybe the longest episode.
It's because of all the mail. You said not to do the mail last week. And so we're left with all this mail, but I finally got through it.
Yeah, but if we were talking about 20-minute episodes, by God, that's like a whole...
We just would have done 7 of them.
Yeah, that's 2 months of episodes.
Wow. So should we cut this into 20-minute chunks and just dribble it out for months?
I wonder what our listeners would think of that.
What if we just started adding in and what happened to him next? You'll have to find out next week. And then you just edit that at the end of every 20-minute chunk, even if it's in the middle of a sentence.
Except the first 28 minutes, we would just be talking about our vegetable intake.
There would also be a full show where I open the mail, which would be kind of a disappointment. This isn't about Radioactive Boy at all. The best way to support the show, of course, as always, you can find your other Futurelings on Facebook and Reddit and Discord. You can send us things, but the thing that keeps the show ticking is your support at patreon.com/omnibus project. But we will make it worth your while. This isn't just for single-mindedly selfless, self-sacrificing ascetic types. No. You get rewarded if you go to patreon.com/omnibus project.
That's right.
And become a supporter. You can't afford not to join.
That's right. It pays for itself.
It really does. Not in money. You will definitely be down some money, but very little, because it's like $5 a month.
Yeah, hardly any. Think about
a rounding error amount of money and a non-rounding error amount of happiness.
In today's economy, that's not even a cup of coffee.
What do you think the record for the longest omnibus entry is? Have we already passed it?
No, I think 1 hour and 45 minutes has got to be pretty close to that.
We really should edit this into 3 40-minute episodes.
Maybe in the
Radioactive Boy Part 2.
Maybe futurelings in the future will have shorter attention spans because they're the product of a social media generation, and they'll chop it up on their own.
I guess it would be easier not to chop it up and release it, but just to tell people, okay, stop here because we're not putting out a show next week. Save the next 40 minutes for next week, please. Most of our listeners have been asleep for an hour, so
that's right.
Yeah.
They missed the touching story of you saving Daniel then. I hope they go back and listen.
Yeah.
And
Because they're listening now to this when they wake up in the morning. It's still playing.
So you missed this great thing that happened in the outro an hour ago. And by the way, I read that letter. It did not appear to be John's disguised handwriting. You're not planting your own letters like Norma Desmond.
No, I don't even know if I am devious enough to have thought of that.
But now you have.
Now I have. Now you're going to get a letter every week.
If I just keep... Boy, your anonymous deeds from the 90s just keep coming up on the show.
That's right.
It's crazy.
You know what else John did that was amazing? Futurelings, from our vantage point in your distant past, we have no idea how long our civilization survived, but we hope and pray that the catastrophe we fear may never come. But if the worst comes soon, this recording, like all our recordings, may have been our final word. If Providence allows, we wish you many goods and cheese, and hope to be back with you soon for another entry in the office.